Welcome. I'm Sue Landay. This is Show and Share. And today I am with Jamie Graceffa, and he's going to correct me if I mispronounced his name as we talked about early on.
Okay, great.
And, we've been selling Jamie's product probably for almost a year now and have been thrilled to have this tool that hopes to make organizations and workplaces a better, kinder place. So the last time Jamie was with us, he had recently launched the tool. And since then, I think both from our urging and his work as a VP of talent development in the biotech industry, really wanted to develop additional activities that use this deck to develop teams and leaders.
Mhm.
And he said, Sue, can I share this with the group? And here we are. So, Jamie, welcome.
Thank
Happy
you.
to have you and happy to share these new activities.
Thank you. Thank you, Sue. And I said this before. I was working with Trainers here, Trainers Warehouse, 10, 12 years ago. To be partnering with her now, it really is a full circle moment. So always great to be here. And I do have a day job that does what a lot of you all do. I'm a practitioner, so I feel what you're all feeling. So I'm excited to get started. Thanks for being here. I just wanted to quickly mention how I made the connection between culture and kindness, because it wasn't until 2020 that I was asked to lead culture and inclusion. I have never led it before. My work tied to it, champion and ally, but I never led it. So I really had to understand what makes a great employee experience. I looked at my own employee experience. Why did I stay at a company longer than I should have, opportunity wise? Because they were good to me. I didn't get the next level, but they were good to me. And why at another company did I have a pretty negative first year, only to take a lateral move, no change in anything except for the people I was working with, only to go on and thrive for another 12 plus. I was treated really well at the lateral move. I looked at the work that I do, the work that we do, and we're pulled into a lot of behaviors, people who are not as collaborative, people looking to work around each other than with each other, and maybe the occasional toxic person. And then lastly, why can we have a different culture, one set of cubes over from another group, one floor up, one floor down, one remote experience from another? And it just hit me. It's really the biggest driver of our employee experience, positive or negative, is how we are treated by the people we work for and with.
So the
And with,
big question is like, how do you institutionalize that,
yes,
right? Yeah.
yes. So then it boiled down to what is the remedy for this? And I came down with kindness. And we'll get into that because it lands just across the board. So, and I thought kindness is the remedy. Kindness is a tool. Some people are better at it than others. No shame there. So I was shopping for a tool that actually used the word kind. We don't use it at work as much in our personal lives, and we'll get there. And development. I couldn't find it. So I developed it myself because I am a writer. And this is what I came up with. And meet Kind Cards if you're not familiar. Of course, it is 52 cards. Why not? And each card outlines a unique act of kindness, the benefits, why we want to do it. And some cards have suggested scripts because often we just need that opening line to engage in a conversation that could be a little bit emotionally charged. And then there are reflection questions on the back. And there's always a prompt on the bottom, like what will you do? Who will you apologize to? And they're also color coordinated. Red cards are personal growth. Blue are communication and connection, and red are relationship building. Of
And
course,
so, I'm sorry, Jamie. So correct me if I'm wrong, but when you first developed these, I think you said that they were for individual use
yes,
and, you know,
yeah.
giving them out for people to use kind of in their one-on-one experiences. And
Mhm.
now you're moving more towards in the spirit of institutionalizing culture and kindness. How can we equip leaders, managers, team leaders, um, you know, to be able to use these and have the facilitation tips to do so without being an expert.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
this is what they're being more used for. And as an OD practitioner as well, I knew this is where I wanted to go, but they are being used to develop what Sue said, leaders, teams, the dynamics among teams, the collaboration. It's also a way to reward and recognize. It's not punitive if you're using kind cards. It doesn't mean you're unkind. So there's a whole host of ways, and we're going to explore those that you can use the cards. I just also wanted to mention the wild cards because no deck would be complete without them. You have to remember to be kind to yourself. Truly, it's that whole adage. Oxygen mask. You have to be kind to yourselves. We're asked to do a lot of heavy work with people. Be kind to yourself. Just some things to keep in mind. If you're looking for a buy-in, executives buy-in, here's some things that I've learned along the way. The reason why I chose kindness, again, it lands across the board a little bit better than EQ does. And some people get empathetic leadership, some people don't. But kindness, we all get it. We're taught it as kids. Say hi to the new kid. Share your sandwich if they forgot theirs. Same impact, same principle at work. Welcome your new colleagues. There are significant benefits to people who choose kindness or champion kindness at work. 70% more loyal, 50% higher retention, more productivity. We're going to send these stats out. I'm not going to go through each of them, but we want to make sure you have it. You might have to level set on what kindness is and what it's not, because these are the words that have been given to me when I say, let's be kinder at work: fluffy, squishy, and weak. Like,
Mhm.
okay, what do you think kindness is? And then we level set. It is not performative. It doesn't mean you tolerate poor performance. Kindness and accountability can coexist. And it really is a tool to strengthen the employee experience with teams, individuals, and company wide. Sue, did you want to add anything here?
I was just going to say, I heard you say earlier that often people refer to leaders as, are they effective? Are they strong? Are they purposeful? But they don't always talk about their their kindness, their ability to connect with people and lead with empathy.
You're absolutely right. Think about everybody on the call. Have you ever heard in your current job or any previous job any leader described as a kind leader? You're effective leader, good leader, strong leader, but I don't hear kind leader or kind teams for that matter. And that's really a point when you facilitate these to just talk about it. What do you think kindness is, everybody? Right? No, it's a good point.
And again, you said we can make this available to people. We
Absolutely.
know there's a lot of words on this slide, but
Yeah. But
we'll
you're
get it to you.
and they're helpful when you're level setting with a group of people who may side-eye you. We're going to be kind. I don't know why I throw a Southern accent on that. I just tend to when we do that. But Southern people are very kind, so no shame. All right. Um, I'm really excited about the playbook. We have 7 activities, and it's going to just keep growing the more I learn. 7 activities, easy to facilitate activities, because not everybody has the luxury of bringing a facilitator with them or a trainer, and it's called Workshopping Kindness. And I actually couldn't be more proud of this book. Let's look at a few of them. So here's how you can do a leadership activity with a bunch of leaders. I know Trimark has used this when they had their 3-day leadership kickoff, and we're actually going to have a chance to practice this one. Okay, so you get some leaders. You're all leaders. Select 3 to 5 cards that reflect. You can choose the following prompt: leadership behaviors that you already demonstrate that you think you're doing pretty well at, and how do they serve or benefit your team? And if you're going to select some cards on leadership behaviors you like to strengthen and enhance, and how would building those better serve your team? And then you get into a paired discussion and the debrief as a larger group. And then there's a commitment. I'm going to do this. And this is where they bring the cards with them. They're portable. You can take them to meetings with you. So just take a look at this and let's try it out. All
Right.
right. Here the cards are in their full glory. They're like 5 by 7-ish. They're a pretty good size. Um, And the headlines do suggest what the card's about, but there is content there. But as you see these unravel, if in your leader, what one card or two cards do you think that you do well that serve you or the people you work with? And if you were going to bump it up just a bit, what one or two cards would you select to do that? And if anybody would like to share, I would love to hear it. And I know Sue would too, because we talked about it.
Do we want everybody to write something in chat or just share? We're
What,
17
whatever,
people or so, so feel
yep,
free
whatever
to
you're comfy with.
unmute. Yeah.
We're all friends. You can jump off and just say, I've got a thought about what I think I do well. And if I were going to enhance it, because it's easy to be kind when things are going well, right? And kindness will look different depending on the makeup of the person, right? People will be very subtle about their kindness, and some people may be a little bit more robust, but it's all kindness. So would anybody like to share one they do well?
Okay, we have a couple in the chat. Extending Grace, Margaret, if you feel comfortable to share a little bit more about that.
Love that card.
Or
I think
Kevin.
I really try to commit to really like believing the best in people, making that most generous assumption. Dr. Brene Brown talks about that. Like, what is the generous assumption I can make in this situation?
Mm,
Mm.
I
Giving
really
people the benefit of the doubt, right?
Yeah, and what I like about both those cards, because they're cousins, right? Benefit of the doubt is I don't know what's going on there. I got an email. It kind of irritated me. My first reaction is to want to give it back to them and meet that intention, but maybe there's something going on. Grace is you kind of know. Be like, listen, they've got a lot going on. I'm not gonna hit them on this. I'm gonna give them some grace. If it's
Mm.
chronic, that's another story. But I know they're having a little bit of a difficult time. I'm going to give them some grace on this. So I love that one. Would anybody like to share one they could be better at? I know mine, so I'd like to hear from somebody else.
Let's give us a
Anything in
moment.
the chat, Sue?
Think. I'm gonna write one in, but if
Okay.
anybody else has one they want to talk about, and then I can tell why, but
Interesting holding up a mirror, right? And you're among friends. It's nobody's perfect at any of these, so take perfection off your shoulders. Doesn't exist.
John, tell us a little bit more you're thinking.
Yeah.
I had to get off mute. Um, I think just in resetting straight relationships, I think when we go through that process, we have to get to a point of closure. And I think once we get closure, it's like, I'm clearing that space, I'm protecting my space, but I'm also not necessarily revisiting it and going back to it. It's like I shut the door and then that was it. Like I'm not going to go back into that space again. And I think sometimes it's out of protection for ourselves, but it's also I think there's a healthy way to be able to reach out to somebody. I know there's people that have colleagues and people that I've, just have a grudge against, people that I'm carrying something for, and they could probably care less. They might have moved on, and maybe they do, maybe they don't. I don't know. But that's the whole idea of being able to make peace and get closure in a different way.
I
That,
really love how you stated that.
yeah, that sort of also piggybacks on what I was thinking about offering help. And I was thinking about it in terms of giving people your time, right? So kindness isn't just necessarily like saying the thanks, but it's being available to to listen and I guess just to be available to
Hmm.
people.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what I learned? I think we all know this anyway. I can't control the other person as much as I would love to. I cannot. I can
Mm,
control how I present myself to that person and reset a strained relationship. That has served me well because if you're feeling it, they are too. And when you come
mhm,
together and you do it in a collaborative way, we need each other. There are some, if I feel it, I'm sure you do too. Like, what can I do? It's not like you do this, you do this. Is there anything what would you need from me? What would you like from me?
Mhm.
mm,
And have that conversation. And then I've seen it happen in real life and it actually strengthens, it tightens that. In many cases, they get stronger So I really love you sharing that, John. Thank you.
Yeah, and I
It's
feel like time heals, right? And time gives different perspectives. I mean, if I can look back on a situation that happened 5 years ago, I'm a very different person now. I've evolved as a human being, but I can look at it through a much clearer perspective now and maybe consider other things that I wasn't considering when I was in it. You know what I mean? So I think that, there's a time that comes around that might make it, a better situation come out of that, whatever it was. So
Mhm. And John, when I'm working with teams on this, um, I just say it's not if, it's when you step into it with another person. It's when you cross a boundary. It will happen, but it's how you rectify that matters in the time
mhm,
frame in which you do it to fix it. And because it's going to happen, especially when we're a little bit stressed or we're going in many different directions. It's hard to keep kindness front of mind. These serve as that reminder because they are portable, but we're all human and it's going to happen.
absolutely.
so another thing that comes to mind for me as we're thinking about the deck and just this experience that we had together, that James earlier in our chat said that referring to a leader as kind almost implies that they're not managerial. But look at what a kindness deck of cards has
Mhm.
brought to us, to the types of conversation we're able to have, and to get to some really productive uh, topics that can really make a difference. Danielle, I see you have your hand raised.
Yeah, hi. I'm sorry I can't have my camera on this morning, but this is great. I really appreciate this session so far. Um, and one of the things that I talk about with my coachees or the people that are in my classes is why, like why something is important to you. And I'm wondering if you include that as part of this conversation. So in addition to identifying things you do well or identifying things you'd like to work on, but why is that important to you or what difference is that going to make?
Yes, I love that, and it is. And if we go with John's example, why do I care enough to actually set a meeting on your calendar and talk about why our relationship is strained? It's because I care about the work that we do. I care about our collective success. And I do also care about your experience here. It's exhausting to want to work around somebody and avoid them than with somebody. So I think the why of any of this is really critically important and is a great anchor to any one of these. Um, and even there's one I was the cousin to like reset a strained relationship is I think I saw be kind to somebody you dislike. It's harder to avoid them. It's easier to be like, hey, good morning. How are you doing? Hope you had a great weekend. Doesn't mean you have to be besties, but how you're showing up with kindness could, in fact, change the way they respond and react to you because you're not meeting it the same way. But Danielle, excellent point. The why is, I think, in anything is really important. Why am I investing time? Why are we having this conversation? Why am I thanking this person? Which makes it much more tailored and personal when you talk about why am I doing it instead of saying just thank you, the why behind it will help make it more meaningful. Absolutely.
Should we move on to one of your
Yes.
next activities?
Woohoo. Yes, I would love to because it gets me off the hook for sharing what I could do better. So here's another one with teams, really, and how you strengthen the team. There's a few ways to do this because I think there's another team one, but this is collectively, what the team does well. And this is like a team charter. And any kind of offsite or team meeting should include, let's just check in on how we're working. So you can have individuals pick up to 5 cards and say, we do this well as a team. And if we're going to bump it up or expand or grow a little bit more, not that we're horrible, here's the 5 cards that I think we could do it in. And then you can kind of break them out. This is very, facilitated. You put them in groups and they share their cards. And then each group collectively say, hey, these are what we talked about, and our cards in common are here. And then there's a larger debrief, and then you can see, hey, what cards were the most common? What 3 or 5 cards did almost everybody have? And that's our charter. Keep those 5 in mind, keep those with you, and that team meetings for accountability, be like, hey, how are we doing on these? And people still have their cards there, and they can also give a shout out. Sue, we talked about doing this. I just want to thank you for advocating for me. I saw what you did, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. So it's a great place to reward and recognize people. if there's a team that's in dysfunction, everybody knows it, right? And this just gives people a way to express themselves, which is not calling people out. This is not meant to be like, okay, on the team, Sue, you don't do this great, but John, you're awesome at this. It's collectively, right? So it should be a psychologically safe space. And you just start off, no team is perfect, right? But we're pretty good, or we're a new forming team. So let's check in on ourselves. How are we doing?
And Jamie, I like the language, which I think as trainers we're probably all familiar with, of starting out of what are we doing that's working well as the basis.
Mhm.
And your next question isn't what do we suck at? It's where's there an opportunity for growth? It's sort of like the what can we do differently? What can we change? So you're able to talk about opportunities for change rather than saying, oh, we're so dysfunctional or blaming or anything
Mhm.
else.
You're right. And that's what I love that, Sue, because when you talk about the employee experience, it's who we work for and with. And this is the and with part. And to Danielle's earlier point, why am I taking time for us to focus on this? I care about how you feel about work. It matters to me that you're having a good experience here. And this is why I want to check in on it with you, right? And they can also combine it with, hey, I checked in on myself as being a leader. Here's a couple of cards I think I do okay. I hope you agree. And here's some I think that I'm going to make do better. This is my commitment to you. So it's also everybody's doing something on the team, but this is another way to just strengthen collaboration. Any other thoughts from anybody before we move on to it, just to showcase another one?
I have one other question about facilitating this.
Hmm.
And I wonder if you typically set out ground rules or if there are, you've made this available for lay people and people who are not expert facilitators, but are there tips that can help people be productive at this and anticipate if there's friction or if it's a troubled team, do you suggest that someone else come in to facilitate? What other tips might you offer us?
That's a great point. And in the playbook itself, this is just screenshots. In the opening, there are some nuggets that people can use to level set on kindness. It is never about personal attacks. So if you all have done this work, and I'm sure you all have, you have the meeting ground rules, right? Or, phones off or limit your phones. It's really about a place to have a dialogue with no personal attacks, right? And again, the why part of we're doing this. And that's really it. I think that most people know kindness and they're comfortable with the topic. And if you just say, we're going to check in on how we're doing as a team and just some things to keep in mind, it's kindness. We all have different views of it. We love it in our personal lives, right? You have the bumper stickers, the mugs. You all share the videos when you see something really kind. This focuses on work, same concept, same principles, but let's talk how it works here. And you can even say, we don't really use the word kind to describe people, but it's something we all want. And I thought it would be great to have a session on it. So, yeah, but I think it's the basic meeting ground rules that you have with any meeting to keep it safe apply here. Yeah, it's a great question.
I just want to add one other plug as I'm thinking about this. We also have a Get Happy at Work thumball, which would kind of balance with this really nicely because it focuses on what do you want to do? How do you want to grow? What makes you productive
I
and
have
happy at work?
I have
That's
my
the session
thumbballs.
opener.
I have another one. I've got my thumbballs so handy. See, I told you. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
All right, and now
Um,
I'm watching the time. We have 5 or 6 minutes left.
all
I
right.
think we have one more activity to
Yep,
share,
one
right?
more. Let's take a look. So this is remote. Now, this is a big deal. A huge part of our teams and our colleagues are remote, and they matter too. They matter just as much as anybody who walks in to a building, right? And this can really enhance connection and belonging. And if it really gives a person to reflect on their remote experience, and they can pick a card that reflects somebody others do that help them feel more connected, whether that's a check-in, right? Or sharing something, getting to know them a little bit more. And then they can choose a card that reflects something that they try to do for others as well, right? or a card that reflects something you'd like to be better at from a remote standpoint, or something that you need something from the team. Again, not calling it out, but if you can all keep this in mind when working with me, I would love this.
So
And
Jamie, how do you facilitate it online without a card deck? Do people when they get this have a link to cards online, or how does
no,
that?
there are no cards online. So what they would have to do is they just ship them a deck. I've had companies that bought 50, hundreds packs, and they just make sure everybody has them. In a situation, if you have some people in the room and some people remote, I have buddied them up. So a remote person can be the buddy of somebody in the room where maybe the cards are, and they can FaceTime and they can show them and they can select that way too. If not, everybody is able to get a deck, so they can certainly do that as well. I've seen that happen many times, buddying up.
All right, so we can work with folks can work with us on a quantity discount. We'll be in touch
Yes,
about that.
definitely. Yes, because the more that they will get the discount. Um, but I think this is great because we forget about our remote colleagues sometimes. We don't mean to, but we do, and this is a way to give them a voice. There's also there's another team activity one, in addition to the one I just showed you, and there's a prompt that I love. It is choose a card that you value for yourself, because sometimes we get into conflict when we cross a boundary, right? And it's about what I value most about me. And I was actually doing a team session with my team, and my card was have somebody's back. I want to know my team has my back. So if somebody's saying something about me and I'm not in the room and it's not correct, somebody on my team will correct it. And somebody will be like, hey, when you're working with me, can you keep this in mind? I really value somebody that just spreads positive energy. I know there's a lot to complain about, but I think we should keep it upbeat. So it's a chance for people to share what they value most about themselves and how you work with them. And that can also be very good for teams to know so they don't step into it.
So Jamie, as much as I love the card deck, I'm so happy that you've developed the playbook as well, because as I'm hearing you say that and how you phrase a question, either what speaks to you about this, or as you've just said, what card do you value most? How we ask the questions and set people up for this exercise, I'm sure can make a big difference.
It does. And so I believe in modeling it. And I would invite any facilitator or leader or even a team lead, if you look that this is fairly easy to do, to also pick one for themselves and engage in the conversation. And I think that goes to show that they're all in it together. And again,
Mm,
it's not punitive because it's a great way to recognize somebody's kindness, and it's specific.
mm.
Yeah, I agree with you fully on that. I think the best way to model it and how you phrase a question, I think we're all experts in asking the right way to keep that psychological safety in the room and with other people.
I'm adding some notes for whoever happens to look at this chat afterwards.
Yeah. I don't know if I had one more. Oh, here's an icebreaker. Sometimes you just, in addition to Sue's amazing balls, right? You can also use the card. Hey, what value you lead with and why? A recent act of kindness you received and how did it make you feel? John, when you did this for me a couple of weeks ago, I can't tell you the impact it made, so thank you. Or a recent act of kindness you extended to somebody and how did they respond? It's a great way to recognize reward and spark meaningful conversations, deepen the connection that we all have working with one another because we're together hours and hours and hours a week, and
That's
we
true.
should enjoy it.
I've asked a lot of questions. I know Danielle also got to ask a question, but please, folks, do you have other questions for Jamie? I know Sarah, thank you. My colleague Sarah's put some links
I
into
want to
the
see you
chat
all.
as well. But please, this is a great time to ask questions of Jamie or me or anybody else.
Mm-hmm. So you're all so kind, so that's
I
why I
know.
know
Well, no, I
you're
should
kind
probably
people.
I should probably take note of how other trainers have suggested
Oh,
posing questions, not just what questions you have, but maybe what do you still wonder about, or what's still lingering. Um,
oh, wonderful. Thank you, John.
One thing that kind of stands out is like different ways to use the cards. And I would love to hear other people's opinions, like, oh, I heard it this way. So the remote work, I heard it used internally. But what we are experiencing is a lot of teams are starting to expand to remote services. And there are people behind those remote services that we may get frustrated with that
Hmm.
we never have the opportunity to speak with. So I
Hmm.
think, the frustration may build, or they're lending services, but they never are a part of our interaction in teams. So I was thinking with that card, or that deck, that question, how do we show grace? How do we have patience? How do we, for these people who are helping us, but we
Hmm.
never get to interact with them? So I'd be interested in, like, did something else come up? Like, you can use this way, but you could also use it this way for anyone who may be thinking like different ways.
Oh,
So,
that's a really interesting way, Rose, because sometimes you're right. It's not always obvious, right? And it's not everybody is there. And yeah, it's sometimes it's the unsung heroes behind the scenes that, IT comes to mind
yeah,
sometimes.
they're getting
Yes,
insurance breakdowns for
yes.
you, but they made an error and now we're not so happy. But you never have the time to build relationship
Hmm.
where you are able to give grace, or,
or vendors.
reciprocate. Then there's a lot of that happening now, in the industry, and so.
Yeah, no, I love that. And John gives the voiceless a voice. And I love that. When you can't word it, you can't articulate it. And sometimes you're just like, I don't know. And you see like, this is it. And you can riff off of what the card is and personalize it. But yeah, it's a way to express yourselves when the words aren't there or the opportunity isn't there for whatever reason. And when you create this space, it gives the voiceless a voice. I love that very
It's
much.
listening space, isn't it?
Yes, and listening, it's a card because to truly listen is one of the kindest things we can do for another human being. And I mean phone down, right? Focusing on the speaker, all in and not moving this, and just and listening. Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. That
Heather?
was the one that I needed to work on, by the way. On the so
Anything else anybody is wondering about?
I'd be curious to know if anybody has used this in any type of like mediation situation where you have some employees who are in conflict, to really help move that
mm.
along.
I have not heard of that, Jody, but my God, I love that idea. I've heard it in mentoring and coaching scenarios, like, when you're working with other people, pick some cards of how you would like them to see you. And then let's talk about, do they see you this way? But I have never, it hasn't come up, and I have a certification in mediation, and the light bulbs are now going off. I think it would be a great way because sometimes parties in conflict, again, kind of talking about what John does. We don't always, the words, I'm too in it, but I can be thoughtful, like, what aren't you giving me,
Hmm.
that is creating this conflict? And what do I need? And it's a tool and it can give us a voice when we really can't say it ourselves. That's a brilliant idea.
Really
But I think
interesting.
it can
It's
help.
also triggering for me. I also do training in conflict resolution. And in that, the getting to yes model, you have like the content that people are negotiating, but you have the communication and the relationship that enable conversations about content. So if you
Mhm.
were to break away and say, we can't even get to this yet, we need to be able to have this conversation about how we're relating with one another and to be able to use this as a tool to diagnose and think about where there might be opportunities there is a lovely idea.
It's beautiful. And, maybe it's one card at a time that just gets us to open the door. And Margaret, I will absolutely share how I got by it because I should give him $1 for every time I use his quote about being fluffy for kindness. That really sparked the conversation to be like, what do you think being kind to one another at work means? And it doesn't mean we had this whole thing about nice. Sue has a performance issue, but I'm not going to tell her she's busy and she's, her cat's in the hospital. I'm just not going to say anything. I hope it's not. I don't even know if you have one. But the other thing is being kind would be like, no, I care about her reputation and I care about how she's seen. And I'm going to have that conversation. And I also know I have a friend that works in construction and he said, Jamie, your kindness blank will not fly where I work. And I said, you all want it. If you're going to on a construction site and somebody needs to leave early, you don't want your boss or your manager to give you a hard time. You want them to say, Sue, go ahead. No problem. I know you got to get some stuff done. See you tomorrow. It may look different, but it still maps to kind acts and kind behaviors. So yeah, we had to go deep on that. And I say, well, let's talk about what kindness is and what it's not. And again, about the kindness and accountability can coexist. Tell me what you think it is. And I'm like, do you believe we should all treat each other well? Like, oh yeah, I do. We should be kind to one another. And so I had to open it up that way. Maps to safety. I love that as well. So that's how I dealt with the fluffy man, who is now he's a kind advocate. I will have to say I've turned him around.
I'm just making notes that
Yeah.
it does map to both physical and psychological safety. Like we talk a lot about the psychological safety piece in our world here, but appealing to folks like that, focusing on the physical safety piece.
There's just
Makes
one
sense.
last thing I want to leave this team with, because I've been speaking about it and I've been seeing these cards used in another way. DE&I, as we all know, has been under scrutiny this year. And kindness is a good way to bridge many, not all, but many of those values through kindness. It is kind to include. It is kind to suspend our judgment about another person. It is kind to advocate. It is kind to respect our differences. And it is kind to want to know more about the people that we're working with. And I think that's in there. Again, it doesn't account for all of it, but if there's some situations where people have to pivot, kindness is a great bridge to keep some of those values alive. So,
Bravo. With that, Jamie, I'm going to say thank you. And thanks to everybody for participating and being part of this. This was really helpful to think about leadership and teaming with the backdrop of kindness.